Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. It's Lane here with MetaShackle. Today we're going to be going over the viewer's choice video of which XLM and HBAR were the winners. And if you're not familiar with my viewer's choice, I hold these in the post tab. I usually make a post just like you can see right here where it says viewer's choice. There will be rules to follow for that particular round. Then you'll just basically put your recommendations down here in the comments for that particular viewer's choice. Then I will tally up the winners, take the top 8. Then I will have a poll, usually split into 2, which you, the viewer, will vote on. As you can see here, HBAR won with 46% in this one. And in the second poll, XLM was the winner at 49%. I do these viewer's choice on occasion. So if there's a particular crypto or an asset that you'd like to see in a video, participating in the viewer's choice is a great way to potentially get your crypto covered so that you can see it in the next video. But in this particular video, we'll be going over XLM and HBAR. So let's not waste any more time and let's get into the charts. For additional information and exclusive perks, do consider joining me and the rest of our community on Patreon. First off, taking a look at XLM on the daily chart. These are the charts that I release for my Patreon members every Sunday, which include my grafting charting strategy with my fib levels and my equilibrium zone that you can see right here. I also add Elliott Wave to them now, and I've always used the smart money concepts with the fair value gaps. So taking a look at the chart right now, what we can see is that it is actually trading just above the equilibrium line, which is the green line in the center of the equilibrium zone right here. Price is trading slightly above that, but there is a bullish order block sitting just above that current price, and it is trading within a small wedge pattern right here. But looking at the pattern overall, it's still trading below this upper trend line right here, which has repelled price once already. And we're also exhibiting a potential bearish divergence right here on the daily between this point right here and this point right here. Now this isn't set in stone, and it can be broken if price gets above this point here, which at current is about 47 cents. But this is a bearish divergence, and being on the daily, they generally have a little bit of teeth to them, meaning that if the price does push down from here, we could see a move back to this lower trend line. So this is something I'll keep an eye on. XRP is actually exhibiting this same potential bearish divergence, which I shared with my Patreon members this morning. But having price trading above the equilibrium zone is definitely a good sign. But this divergence is something to definitely keep your eye on, because it could definitely bring price down if it comes into play. And if you're not familiar, this indicator I'm using right here is called the CCI, or the Commodity Channel Index, which makes it very easy to spot these divergences, and it works quite a bit different than an RSI or a stochastic. The CCI uses a deviation which is based on the average price of the asset, to where the RSI, for example, is based on the speed and magnitude of gains versus losses, and the stochastic is based on the closing price within a recent high or low range. So one thing you'll notice when using the CCI is it exaggerates these areas, which makes it a lot easier to spot potential divergences within the charts. So if you're a trader, the CCI is definitely one that you'd want to look into. Now looking at my second chart, this is a 4-hour chart for XLM. This is a chart where I mark out the Elliott Wave so that I can keep a count on here of where we're at within any given pattern to help me determine when to put on a trade, where not to put on a trade. I'm really finding that the Elliott Wave is very useful when used in combination with my grafting charting strategy, as well as smart money concepts. I think it's a very lethal combination, using Elliott Wave to try and give you an idea of which way price is going to move, smart money concepts, as you can see here, which set your resistance and support levels, as well as your supply and demand with your order blocks, and with the grafting charting strategy to basically find your equilibrium within the pattern so you can determine if you're trading at the high range of the pattern, the low range of the pattern, or near equilibrium. I'm finding that it makes my trading much easier to determine when I want to put trades on and take trades off. But as we can see right here, XLM just came out of a 5-wave move to the upside, hitting the upper trend line, and appears to now be forming an ABC correction, of which we could just be forming right now the start of the C leg to the downside, which is likely to come down to the area of this low here, because the C leg is generally the same length as the A leg. That doesn't happen all the time, but oftentimes that's the case. So it could sweep the liquidity right here, finding a bottom right down here in this bullish order block before forming a new pattern, which in this case looks like it could very well be another 5-wave move to the upside, breaking out of this potential descending wedge pattern that we're seeing here. That's what I'd be looking for, but it's still just a little bit too early to tell at this point. But it does look like we are starting to form that C leg to the downside, which could take us to around that 37-cent range. Being coupled with what we were just talking about on the previous chart, with this potential bearish divergence forming right here, this very well could confirm that we are in fact about to see this C leg right here taking us down into this lower area here. Now, for whatever reason, this ended up being a longer C. It could take us down, if it breaks through this bullish fair value gap, down to this bullish order block for a draw in liquidity, which some people would see as a bad sign, but actually to where there's liquidity down here, this could be a good sign, especially moving into a new 5-wave move to the upside, because this could give us the liquidity that we need in this order block to make that move to get the momentum to break out of this upper trend line. There's certainly no guarantee that that's how it's going to play out, but right now it does look like we're at least going to see a move down on this C leg somewhere into the area of this fair value gap right here, centered about 36.8. So that being the case, my initial target would be from this low here to about the center of that fair value gap, kind of in the way that I look at things. But if this does get taken out, then this bullish order block centered right here at 35.1 would be the next likely target. Now coming over and taking a look at the HBAR chart, this is back to the daily charts. You can see that the price is very similar to what we're seeing on the XLM chart, with price trading just above the equilibrium line within the equilibrium zone. On this particular chart, HBAR has broken out above the smaller wedge trend line that you can see right here and has actually come down and retested it slightly. Looking at the larger overall pattern, there's a couple different ways you could look at this. I have it marked out with this trend line sitting right here as more of an expanding, broadening wedge type of a pattern, but you very well could bring this trend line down here to something like this, which actually might be more helpful in the chart right now, meaning that if this moves upward, we would want to get out and above this upper trend line on the daily chart, which is sitting right around that 28-29 cent range. Then get out up and above this bearish SIBI right here on the daily, centered at about 29.7, which could start acting as support. Now there is a small bearish order block resting right here on the charts, centered about that 33 cents, but I really don't think this is going to put up much resistance. It hasn't even been tested yet, but it's very small, and it occurred way early in the season, so there's a very good chance that this order block won't hold a lot of teeth to it. But it is also exhibiting the same thing that we saw on the XLM chart, with the potential for a bearish divergence forming right here as well, coming off of this point down to the current price. Now this could be negated if price gets up and above this upper trend line and trades up above that 3.30 cent 6 range from this point right here. And if price continues to move up, it will only increase the indicator value of this divergence, pushing it upward. But as it sits right now, being above the equilibrium line is a good sign. We've broken out of this upper wedge trend line here, which is another good sign. So we definitely want to see it stay above the equilibrium line, stay above this upper trend line, and start progressing towards this upper trend line to at least make an attempt at breaking above it. Now swinging over and taking a look at the 4-hour chart. This one has been a little bit harder to chart out on the Elliott Wave because we had a 5-wave move to the upside with a very short fifth, an ABC to the downside, which swept the previous lows of the A wave that you can see right here, and has now started to move to the upside to where we're currently sitting. Now I'm still kind of unsure about what we're looking at exactly here. This could be a 1-2 moving into the third wave, which would be a good sign because the third wave is generally the most explosive of the 5 waves. But we're also forming another bearish divergence right here on the 4-hour chart, which would be a more short-term type of a move. And you can see that it's coming from this point here to this point right here, and price has actually reacted to it and starting to move to the downside slightly. Now generally these smaller divergences on the 4-hour chart don't yield very large moves. They're more small leg moves, kind of like what we saw right here. If you take a look at the previous divergence, just as an example, you can see that it was diverging right here within this area on the chart, coming up to this previous high right here, which basically yielded this leg right here coming to the downside. So I would expect to see something similar to that on this move, since it is a relatively small divergence on the 4-hour chart. But it's looking like it might do what we're seeing with XLM, giving us a small move to the downside here, which if it takes out this low right here, that could establish what could potentially be the wave 1 coming down into the wave 2, up into the 3, 4, and the 5. So rather than this potentially being the termination point of the second wave, we could see it down here, which would actually fit the pattern better because it would give us our ABC right here in the middle for our second wave. So I think it's most likely that this would be something similar to what we would end up seeing. Now where this would come down to, if it's in a flat like we're seeing here, or whether or not this C is slightly extended, remains to be seen. But I'm always watching out for the termination of the wave 2 on these Elliott Wave moves, because the wave 3 is generally the most explosive, which if you look at these upper fib levels I've had sitting here for a while, could give us a clue to future price action that we could see on a move like this. But this is a very large wave 1 into the 2 if that's the case, so I would expect that the wave 3 would be comparable in size, yielding a move that suits the overall shape of this 5-wave move to the upside better. Perhaps something to this degree here. So that's another thing that I would definitely be watching, is the price right here coming down on this potential C leg, whether or not it's going to break this A right here, whether or not it's going to just be relatively flat, forming an ABC flat correction, as that could tell us where this wave 2 termination point is going to be. And in combination with this bearish divergence right here off of this peak that we can see right here on the CCI, it does make it very likely that we are in fact going to get this C leg right here. So I'm definitely going to be watching this, because some of the best trading opportunities that you'll get as a short-term trader, especially if you're trading with leverage, is looking for the C wave termination going into the wave 2 termination, because catching that wave 3 generally yields some of the best trades that you can get as a swing trader, especially with the 1.618 resting up here at about that 32.5 cent range, because even a 10x trade coming off of that low there to the 618 could yield a fantastic move. Basically, if you were trading $100 at 10x leverage, by the time it was done, if you did in fact hit this 1.618, your $100 on this trade would turn to just a tad over 500, giving you a very nice profit for that particular swing trade. So all in all, I like what I'm seeing here. This formation doesn't look too bad. Having this 5-wave move to the upside with an ABC terminating here, with this potentially being the start of another 5-wave move to the upside right here to here with the second termination, potentially starting another 5-wave move to the upside could be a very good thing. And definitely be cautious, because we're kind of at a point to where Bitcoin has gone on such a big ride, Ethereum went on a very big ride, and now it's looking like money's going to move out of the larger caps into cryptocurrencies like XRP and the other altcoins. So as I've talked about before, I believe that we're going to see a 4-wave cycle moving forward, with XRP being the prime beneficiary. So I'm keeping my eye on XRP and XLM to see how they react. Because if Bitcoin and Ethereum start to make a move to the downside, like a major move to the downside, then I want to see XRP diverging from that downward move. I want to see Bitcoin dominance coming down with Bitcoin and Ethereum, as well as Ethereum dominance coming down. And I want to see XRP starting to move up against them, with XRP dominance starting to rise, which could give us a very good clue to whether or not we're actually ever going to see an altcoin season, as this season has been very strange compared to all previous seasons, just like I told you over a year ago was going to be the case, as we are now moving out of the era of speculation and are moving into the era of adoption and regulation. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Thank you for participating in this viewer's choice. I really appreciate it. Good luck and have a great day.